While we've seen a ton of new features and new products come out in 2019, there's just a few trends or a few things that will really impact your home in 2020. Hello automators, thanks for tuning in again. I'm Brian from Automate Your Life, and today I'm going to take the frustration out of automation by predicting the future a little bit here as we go through 7 trends or 7 things that have gone on in 2019 that will really change how your smart home works. Now, some of these things you're going to want to implement, some of these things you're going to want to start thinking about in order to get the best future look ahead in your smart home. Number 7 is the way we are consuming entertainment in our homes. And this is not just talking about the new home theater setup that Amazon gave us. They're doing things with their speakers and their Fire TV products that other companies can only dream of. But we can also talk about Google's entry into game streaming with Stadia, how they're combining that with the Chromecasts, and they will build that asset up over time. We've also even seen Apple, who's fallen a little behind on some of these things, but their HomePod has been capable of playing Apple TV content for a long time. So what we're seeing is the integration of these speaker systems, and Sonos is another good example, and IKEA within systems like AirPlay 2 or Chromecast or now Amazon's home theater setup that really is changing the way the home works. Number 6 on the list is the creation of new device types. So for a long time in the smart home industry, we saw motion sensors, contact sensors, humidity sensors, or water sensors, and really that's a lot of what we had. But something like the SmartThings Vision, which came along in 2019, is a great example of the next stage of evolution in terms of sensors, and this will really impact your smart home as we get these new sensor types that are capable of much more in terms of complexity of automations and complexity of sensing. The SwitchBot curtain is a great example on the execution side or the action side of a device type that we just didn't have before. Sure, we had smart rollers or smart shutters, but we really didn't have anything like that device. So we will continue to see this expansion and the creation of new device types that we haven't considered. Number 5 is really 2 new sensing types that have come into smart displays but will come into other device types, and really what they're doing is creating secondary control methods for you within your smart home. So the best example of this is the new echolocation, or what they're calling ultrasonic sensing on Google smart displays. So this can tell you how far someone is from the speaker. It can also listen in through its microphones and then tell the distance, and it's creating this new capability to bring up information or to tell you things when you're within range. The other one is really the gesture support, and this is a really important method of control for people who struggle speaking, and this is some of this secondary control method that I think will be so important and will get a lot deeper in 2020. Now, before I go on, I want you guys to comment down below what you see being the biggest trend in 2020. Have I missed something? Go ahead, leave that down below, or just what you see in general. Number 4 is called edge computing, and I think this is one of the most important advancements that we are now making because, quite frankly, we are limited in a lot of the smart devices based on processing power, and a lot of people want local control, they want local processing, and they want local everything, and edge computing allows this. Now, we're seeing it on some of the smart home cameras because they tend to take a little more processing power to execute what they're supposed to do than, say, a motion sensor or something kind of with a less complex function. But we saw that on the SimCam, and that's one of the reasons I brought their camera onto the channel, is they were doing edge computing, and this will be continuing to drive down into products in 2020 and give you extra capabilities locally. Number 3 on the list is something kind of off the beaten path for the smart home, and I think if you look at the Peloton bikes and what they're doing with the coaching sessions and the ability to kind of stream content content to that. You look at some of the smart mirrors, which are starting to talk about holding fitness classes or recorded content as well there for health and fitness. And then you look at what Amazon did with the Food Network. This was relatively recent, where they actually held a live cooking class through their smart displays here within that skill for the Food Network. I think we will see this technology really expanding in 2020, and we will start to see a lot more live content showing up and that interactive content, because now the cameras are there, the microphones are there, and you also have the ability for some of those secondary control methods that we talked about. Number 2 on my list is the drive down to local processing, and we talked about this starting in 2019, but this will absolutely change the way the smart home is run in 2020. And there's always been these niche markets where you could go and you could get certain products that had that local processing, local control, but now it's really coming mainstream. And as Samsung moves into this really deeply within their new Rules API, the web core system, seeing some of that capability drive down locally, and just the fact that they've already put lots of their lighting automations already into local control, as well as some other things, this is really going to speed up the smart home. And we're seeing Google and Amazon move into that zone as well. And I know Apple is capable of it. So we're going to see this drive down really heavily in 2020, and it will create speed and additional capabilities for using the processing capabilities that are already in lots of your devices. And this is really hard to explain, but this also frees up Wi-Fi in a number of ways. See, right now we all consider that our Wi-Fi devices have to be cloud connected. That's not actually the case. It's not actually a requirement that a Wi-Fi device has access to the cloud in order to execute its function. That's the way companies are designing these things. But as we go forward and we see the partnership between Amazon and Google and Zigbee and Apple all working together to go and create this top layer of a smart home protocol for Wi-Fi, Thread, Bluetooth devices, then we're going to see that really become a free protocol for your smart home. And when I say free, I mean free of the cloud connection. The biggest trend for your smart home in 2020 will not come from North America. It will actually come from China. And the fact is, China is now outselling, in terms of smart speakers, the United States. And this is a major impact, with some huge makers over there creating great smart speakers for people in China. Now, what we will see, and we're seeing this with companies like or the Aqara Smart Hub, it now has a US version. It's now impacting especially people with HomeKit. We will see the drive of Chinese products into other markets in 2020, and we will now have to talk about them seriously for our markets, but it remains to be seen exactly how they are going to translate to the North American or the European market. Now, if you'd like a more in-depth analysis, I create those kinds of videos for my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you guys for joining and contributing to the channel, of course. And otherwise, guys, what you can do is you can look at our 2019 trends video. And this is really the trends that hit our smart home. And it kind of moves into 2020, but it's more talking about things you might have missed in the smart home industry. So otherwise, guys, thanks for watching. And of course, don't hate, automate.